My phone buzzed once. A voice message from my dad, 3 seconds long. I almost didn't open it. I wish I hadn't. His voice came through mid-sentence, clearly meant for his wife, clearly sent to the wrong contact. Got the flights down to 1100 for the grandkids' Thailand trip. That's a steal compared to last year. I'll forward you the... And then it cut off. That was it. 3 seconds. I sat there holding my phone like it had just slapped me. Let me back up. My parents divorced when I was 9. My dad had an affair. I found that out later, the real version, not the polished one he told us as kids. My brother and I stayed with my mom. She worked 2 jobs to keep our apartment. My dad paid the minimum required and called it generous. A few years after the divorce, he remarried. His new wife had a daughter from a previous marriage. And somewhere along the way, my dad adopted her, made it official, made her his daughter on paper the way my brother and I already were by blood. I want to be clear. I never resented her for existing. Kids don't choose their family configurations. What I resented, slowly, quietly, over the span of 2 decades, was watching exactly how differently my father loved each version of his children. Her college was paid for. All 4 years, private school, no loans. Mine, I financed myself through 2 jobs and a mountain of debt my dad signed exactly 0 forms to help with. Her wedding was thrown like a small production, a venue with string lights, a band, family flown in. Mine, my dad showed up 40 minutes late to the ceremony and left before the toasts. She got a down payment on a house. An actual check handed over, no strings. I got groceries. One time. He showed up with bags from Trader Joe's like it was a grand gesture and told me to let him know if I ever needed anything like that again. I never called to ask. Some part of me already knew what the answer would feel like. At my engagement, he gave me a card with $200 in it. I remember staring at the number and feeling something crack quietly in my chest. The kind of crack you don't show anyone because it's embarrassing to admit how much a number can hurt. And then there were the vacations. Thailand, twice. Aspen for a week. A cruise for the grandkids, which somehow never once included my kids. I told myself for years that maybe it wasn't favoritism. Maybe it was finances at different points in time. Maybe it was timing, circumstance, the order things happened in. That 3-second voice message ended the maybes, because the way he said it, so light, so casual, like he was talking about a grocery coupon, told me everything I'd spent 20 years trying not to see. This wasn't a one-time generosity. This was an ongoing system. A trip he was actively planning for grandchildren who weren't mine, funded at a level my own children had never once touched. I called him. I kept my voice level, which took more effort than I want to admit. You sent me a voice message by accident, I said, about the Thailand trip. Silence. Then, oh, yeah, that was meant for Carol. I know, I said. I'm not asking why you're going. I'm asking why this is the 3rd trip you funded for them, and I've never even gotten a helped with rent phone call. He sighed. The exact sigh I remembered from childhood. The one that meant I was being difficult by simply noticing things. You've always been fine on your own, he said. You're independent. That's a good thing. I don't need to worry about you the way I... He stopped himself. He didn't finish that sentence. He didn't need to. I finished it for him in my head. The way I worry about them. Independent wasn't a compliment. It was an excuse. A justification he'd built over 20 years to explain why the version of fatherhood I got was always the diluted one, the convenient one, the one that cost him nothing and asked nothing of his conscience. I didn't yell. I didn't cry on the phone. I said, okay, thanks for clearing that up. And I meant it more literally than he probably understood, because that's exactly what he did. He cleared it up. 20 years of wondering settled in 11 seconds, and a sigh. I didn't write an angry letter. I didn't make a scene at the next holiday. I just stopped reaching, stopped initiating calls, stopped sending updates about my life he'd quietly decided weren't worth funding or attending. He still texts sometimes. I respond when I feel like it, which is less and less. People ask if I'm going to talk it out with him eventually, force some kind of resolution. I don't think there's anything left to resolve. He told me the truth by accident in 3 seconds, more honestly than he ever managed in 20 years on purpose. I don't need him to admit it anymore. I already know, and now so do I.